Those up. Okay, so for a little bit of background, I discussed it very quickly before. Last student council. That's not what I want to do. There we go. Last student council was not for it, so all of the motions from it, were taken and discussed by the executive at a residential day over the summer. These minutes here that are now on the screen, and John, for those in the room, John is printing off those, so you should have a paper copy hopefully soon. These are the minutes for that residential discussing the motions, and we also have the actions. The actions carried out from the last two council minutes to look at as well. So, I'm trying to think the quickest, easiest way to go through this might be to look through the actions carried out and which one of those have been addressed within the minutes, and go from there. I think there's probably going to be some discussion about this. These are this is the executive, how the executive about the discussion. At the top, you can currently see the members present.
And is that correct at the executive meeting? Yes.
Yes, we have confirmation. However, I shall say that while this discussion has happened, due to all of the upheaval, general lack of staffing and such, within UISA, having to nothing has actually been carried out after this discussion. So this discussion is taking place, but the actions suggested from the minutes haven't actually moved any further. So if there's anything you disagree in there, nothing's actually happened. So there's probably going to be some questions about that. Right, so if we're just going to get on, I think, so if we're going to start, we're just going to go through the actions carried out quickly. I mean, what you'll see, first of all, is that there's a date of when they were actioned, and then there's a status. You'll see that pretty much, except for a very small number, those actions haven't been completed, so they're either ongoing or haven't really happened regarding those. If we quickly go through those, I think, and it might be easiest if I could get Heidi to come join me.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry, but I might acknowledge what was discussed. What we're going to do is we're going to go quickly through the actions, and if one of them has been dealt with in the minutes, then we'll go to the minutes.
I will assure you, any of these actions that are on this page have not happened.
Right. So we'll just sort of tick these off here, and if they refer to the minutes, then we'll the minutes afterwards.
Okay.
Is everyone good with that?
So is everyone aware that we're working with 2 pages right now? Yes, okay, we've got minutes of the residential, which is before you, and will be coming to you in print. And what Dane is looking at is page 46, the papers you have. Is that everyone? Okay.
So, we'll just go through that quickly. They're not numbered, but we're going from the top to the bottom. So, we could go in reverse order, but we don't want to confuse people. So, constitution changes as in annual general meeting, not annual general nightmare motion. Obviously, that was a motion, therefore, it's in the other document. Create UISA procedural and administrative support committee. I assume that was also a motion.
All of these are motions.
So everything in here is a motion.
It was either passed at student council in April or in student council in November.
Right, and that one was for.
Typo, sorry, on the second one. It says UHSA rather than UHA.
Yes. So this list of actions to be carried out, the date is in reference to the date that the action was proposed.
Yes. Not the action, when the action took place.
but not like this is when we want it done by.
No.
That would be handy.
That would be great.
No. Still trying. This is a bit of an awkward procedure to go through. Trying to figure out the best way to do it. Going through these and just saying this in the other document isn't helping at all.
Melissa, how would you suggest the best way to go forward?
Oh, put me on the spot
You
here.
put me on the spot now.
My suggestion is that, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I have been off, so I'm slightly touched with what has happened. That the action list that is on page 46 of the papers that you have in front of you, Neil, I'm talking about the Student Council papers for today. So from page 46, these are a list of all the actions from April and November in relation to the motions and from the last two student councils, is that correct?
Yes.
So my suggestion would be to work, well, basically we don't have to work through these because I think as Heidi and Claire have just said, and Dane, there is only 3 that have been complete. So none of the rest have been actioned at all from November or from April. What is up on the board here is a list of the motions that some were changed, some were overturned from the decision of Student Council and amended. So anyone that was at April Student Council, some of these are different. I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure the best way to proceed with this, considering that only 3 of the big list of actions is complete on the Student Council papers you have in front of you. I think it's been quite a hard task going through this document because there is only some people who were at April Student Council. But what might be worth doing is to scan through them and look at the resolve and then also update whether it was a change from Student Council decision or if there had been an amendment or things like that. So I would suggest maybe going through the one that is on the computer in front of me. Sorry, I was trying to work that out in my head as I was speaking.
That's great. I've come up with a good idea now. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go to page 48 of the actions carried out. You'll see that they're split into April Student Council and November Student Council. And
That's last November.
yeah, last November, not this November. So pretty much most of the April Student Council outstanding items should be covered in the other paper. So what we'll do is we're going to go through the actions from November and having them carried out and deal with that. Then we'll go over to the other paper and deal with that. And then when we're done, we can quickly skim through it, the actions carried out page, and make sure that there was nothing missed. I think that's going to be the simplest way to do it. Okay, we'll go through this.
Could I make a suggestion
Yes.
that for the ones that haven't been completed, we could get feedback on how far they're doing?
Yeah,
or-
that's what this is.
Alright.
That's what we're going to do. Instead of saying it, no. Otherwise, no more point in this session. So yes, that's exactly what we will be doing. So we're going to go straight to page 48, about near the top. We'll start with the ones that say November Student Council. We'll start with change constitution as detailed in all students presented motion can vote at student council. There was a change to the Ohio constitution previously. Only there was limited criteria of who could vote at student council, and there was a motion passed to change that so that everyone who attended.
Due to the low numbers. Due to the low numbers.
Well, partly that, and partly because there's no point in inviting everyone to attend if they can't actually participate. And the thing is, it had been overlooked in previous years that they couldn't actually vote. It was sort of hand waved, but we were going against what it was said in the Constitution. Therefore, we were changing the Constitution to reflect how we were actually operating. That motion was passed, and so this item on the agenda, basically the motion was passed, but the actual text in the Constitution hasn't been changed, and then it'll have to be ratified by University Court. I think it's University Court.
Yes, but in theory, it doesn't really matter because we're still hand waving at student council.
No. It essentially the item says we are now operating as though it was in the Constitution, and because it's recorded as having passed, it is effectively in the Constitution, it's just not physically in the Constitution. Or treating it as if it's in the Constitution. But someone needs to update the text, which hasn't happened.
Since last year.
Since last November, yes.
That's pretty shocking.
Yeah. Is there do all of these have individual reasons as to why it's been a year and they still haven't been completed, or is there just a block? We haven't had time to do this.
There was a block of changes. The Constitution was updated right after Student Council, and I believe the issue was that one motion, for whatever reason, when it was updated, didn't go through. Whenever someone, I think it was probably me actually. It was me actually. We did that. now that I remember it, was updating it. The one motion that I was updating the text, I missed that, and then we submitted it, and then things you have to get it, send it to University Court. And so University Court would normally terribly please go, oh, actually, we missed one, here you go. And we were going to wait till after the second Student Council, and we assumed there would be changes to the Constitution there. So they would all put it in together, instead of sending a document every few months. Except that because it wasn't court, those motions were delayed until the meeting of the summer, and so it's sort of ended up, here we are now.
Okay.
So you can kind of see the chain of events that led to that. It's not very efficient, but you can see how it happens.
But all the other actions on this page that are blank haven't been done yet either.
Do
Well,
they
that
all
was
have...
the question about that specific one. Well, we can go into why the other ones haven't.
No, my question was, do they all have individually specific reasons, or could you cover them all with, we just haven't had the manpower and the time?
Yeah, the variations of that, essentially, I suppose. Unless there's any...
I can't speak to anything about the November council, not there. I can speak to the April ones that we weren't quorum. We had this residential, which was quorum, but because there was a question of the minutes, we could not have the minutes approved, and therefore we could not make changes to the Constitution to be submitted to the court. So nothing has been actioned because the court has not approved, because we have not accepted our motions to them. Yes. But I cannot speak for the November motions.
No. I think reading through these, the general answer will be it wasn't action because there were other more pressing things, or at least at the time they seemed more pressing to be done. A lot of them you'll see, we've got, if we skip down a couple, they have run a campaign to highlight two students' options, studying abroad, and the benefits this experience can bring. It takes time, energy, some money to run a campaign. We've got also run a campaign to educate students on voting rights. Neither one happened, arguably. Even if one happened, and we just... Is that going to pop back? Yeah, sorry about that. Computer decided to go asleep. There's only so much time to do these, and so only so many people to run them.
But because the list is so
Long.
not complete,
Yes.
what were these actions that took up the time?
Well, there would be a long list of those as well. Where do you want me to start? You want like a short list of very specific ones?
Well, I mean, part of the thing is that to us it just looks like there was a pile of motions
This is all
approved
the
in
stuff
November
yeah.
last year,
Yeah.
and 3 of them have been done a year later.
It
Yeah.
does look
Yeah.
bad from
An
the
entire
outside.
year's worth of directives for the work of the UHISA, and 3 of them have been carried out. So what has UHISA been doing?
And one of
I
them
know
was-
Rachel said attending meetings, but there should be an aim for those meetings, and that aim should be to fulfill one of these directives, surely?
I get a little bit of a sense of what am I paying you people for? You know, it's a bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of.
I mean,
planning.
I'm not attacking you by any means. I know you have been doing things. You know, it's very clear, but it does look very bad. And I think some examples of what has actually been achieved would be
not trying to throw anyone under the bus here by any means, because I'm a member of executive with you. I think some of these could have been answered if we had a report from our president. Sadly, we don't. So that hopefully would have been able to answer some of these questions. Dane was your deputy. I think that is completely, it is a fair question to ask, absolutely. I think we have to acknowledge you guys has messed up, and we've gotten some things wrong, and we're going to try to move forward in this. Dane is no longer deputy president, so I don't know how he feels about, I don't know how you feel, I don't know if it's fair. As you guys know, I don't know the proper way to proceed in this kind of stuff. Are you comfortable?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
I'm just going to read through what actually didn't get done first, very quickly, so my answer to that.
Great.
I'm also going to say that I would probably actually, we're running over time already.
We can cut things.
We can cut as long as that's fine. Actually, there are a couple of these that actually have been done, and we'll go through those. And a couple, one that doesn't actually give reply yet.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I think the position is a very unusual one at the moment in that, we are sitting here with a long list of motions that student council passed that haven't actually happened. And probably, for me, it doesn't look so much like going through one by one what you say that haven't happened. It's more a big conversation, possibly at this point, to acknowledge there's 3 out of a long list that have been done. A discussion of, well, why that has that been, but more how can you guys work more effectively in years to come. I think the concern for me as a student would be I'm attending student council, we're putting in motions, they've been agreed, and then nothing's happened, haven't we? And that's a worrying position for a student to be in. We can acknowledge, I think, there's issues that need to be fixed, and I think, that's possibly the way forward in this discussion, is to think, well, how can that change? Because otherwise there'll be an unpleasant next half hour where we go through one by one and think, well, why is this not done, why is that not done?
I also think it would be helpful to have the November minutes circulated to everyone that's here, because they were not available for April's student council, so nor have they been approved. So when people are able to read the minutes, they'll be able to see the discussions, because at the moment all we've got here is some headline things, so the actual detail of each motion isn't here in order for us to kind of work through. And as I think Kevin said, to sit here working through these headings from November, I think acknowledging that they have not been done for whatever reason, and acknowledging how this can change moving forward, but if somebody could send out the November student council minutes, and then people can put up comments, because we've got very little detail here.
Minutes
Fair
and
enough. You have access to that.
But
The November minutes? Yes. Yep. Come on down there.
Actually, like I said, there are a couple items in here that should actually be ticked off. Support, if you go down page 49, number 4 down, support the post-regionalization project. We're not actually in the post-regionalization project yet. The representation project, is more correctly known, hasn't actually finished yet, so it's not in the post stage. Therefore, that's an action that should be carried out next year afterwards. So that would be ongoing, not necessarily an item to worry about. The continued engagement with the representation project is continually ongoing, and there are several people who are part of the project board and have been feeding in to that discussion. So off of that. Motive, I mean, we're probably not going to go.
Yeah, these are the minutes from the last November student council.
And when They weren't available in April. When did they become available?
They were written up between when Jane finished and when I started my work. So obviously it must have been done at the start of July. But when I got given these, they were really basic and they weren't correct at points because I'd sit through them more minutes. So I've updated them since then, and these are.
Who provided you with these minutes that were incomplete?
It was one of the members of the exec just now.
Right.
But they've been updated, and these are as on the. It's as on the BC recording that's online.
And was there a reason for the November to June, July delay in minutes?
There's none. No one was. We weren't able to get. We didn't have a minute taker at the time for student council, and we did not have. We had spent. We've spent quite a long period of time last year. I think it's noted somewhere else that you may have read that we had spent a long time trying to look about getting a minute taker, and then it never really happened. And the idea had been that minute taker would then do those minutes. But because that never really materialized, I see a question coming from me for a second. The process was delayed until the summer when we basically were forced to get all of the minutes taken care of. So one.
Can I point something out as well? Is at the council last year in November, Kat was VP at the time, I think, and
She
resigned.
said that.
Yeah, she actually resigned at student council. So that kind of obviously threw the exec into a bit of a, you know that because then Alan was.
He came in January.
Yeah, there was a by-election and all that, so there was a chunk of time where they were in essence a man down, you know, which happened at the student council. So that was part of it.
Yes.
You guys looked for a minute taker before. Was that a volunteer position?
No.
No.
Paid. A paid, and you still can't
No one
get
paid.
anyone to do minutes?
There was quite there's actually there's more background. Thinking about this, there's so much background involved.
But there's a lot of ongoing discussion, obviously, just now regarding minutes, because that is the main issue that people have. And people keep saying you don't know the background, but nobody is telling us the background.
Well, I'm going to get to that.
Yes. So.
Well, I have one more question. I'll take that, and then I'll answer everything else I can.
Will these motions all pass at the same time, with the same number of people in the room?
Yes. Maybe a vacancy of one or two people who stepped out for bathroom break on one motion will happen. That's
Okay, the
those
first
ones
one
are
is
all.
for 27 people, the next
Yes,
32.
I
That's
was
a
there in
difference of
November.
5 people.
The problem was on the second day that during the breaks, people over VC were cutting in and out, changing connection
Actually,
issues,
that's fine.
and we were so close to quarry that at times we had to wait for people on VC to connect back in so that we could become quarry.
And sometimes,
And
some of
sometimes
the
it
votes,
wasn't because we were so close to quarry.
and some of the votes, people actually didn't vote for
Yeah.
any of the three options.
Yes.
You know, there's people that didn't vote for, didn't vote against, and didn't vote to abstain. They just didn't vote.
Yeah, but there were I think we waited for it to become quarry, so there was enough people in the room throughout the day. But it's not reflected there because some people never turned up.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, just probably start from where the beginning of last year when I took office. The team consisted of myself, Rachel Parker, and Kat Bateson, and we hired a support assistant full-time. The first year that there had been one. This was also the first year that there was vice president. Previously, before that, there had only been 2 full-time staff lost. So there's a very large change in structure. As Eddie just mentioned, Kat Bateson resigned at Student Council in November. We changed Alan McDonald's. There was a by-election. Alan McDonald took up the post in January. However, before all of that, there were issues regarding the support assistant role, and the position was actually terminated. That person had been contracted to do admin, including writing minutes. So therefore, the original provision for writing minutes and quite a lot of other things had been tied into there. one of the major problems with the whole employment of staff is the unusual position that UHISA has as an organisation funded by public money on a block grant from the university. There's all sorts of technicalities in that that at the time we weren't really aware of, and we spent a lot of time working on trying to figure out exactly what those were with the help of Ian and other people to kind of. Ian didn't know a lot of the complexities at first, and he had to do a lot of research to help us figure out how the employment structure needed to function, which essentially delayed. Our initial plan was to rehire once we'd sorted out the way that we needed to approach an employment within the structure, so that it met all of the legal requirements and things like that. And because of that, we lost quite a lot of capacity, including the minute-taking position, which is how it's had a sort of a knock-on effect to a lot of things. And sort of the lot of time was spent repairing or trying to compensate for what we sort of lost at that point, and falling behind gradually to a point where it sort of built up and it got a bit too deep to catch up to a lot of things. And I think some of that is what you're seeing here. So specifically in regards to minute taking. And as we went along, we debated different ideas of whether we should just wanted to get a person to do the minutes at possibly part-time and do some other admin stuff along that. That didn't. It got a bit late in the year, and that got a bit feasible, and then it was a matter of getting someone to do the minutes on an individual basis, and then so on and so forth. So that is probably the basic background. So what Eddie was saying was that we were, for a small period of time, a man down, or a woman down, a person down, a human being, however, more specifically, there was an entire sort of area that we had sort of expected to have that we didn't. And a lot of people stepped up and filled in various bits and pieces. Yes?
I might have lost track of it here.
Sorry,
so you're saying this was the first year that you had a deputy president.
Yes.
You already had 2 sabbatical officers, and also you were going to hire someone to do minutes, but that fell through. And you were a man down after the deputy president stepped down. But were you not the same amount of manpower that you were the years before that? How come it went so spectacularly wrong this year with the same amount of people, essentially?
I think it's a matter of ambition, perhaps. I have been around for a very long time, or it feels that way. I remember the first student council I went to, and there was quite a few less people in the room here. It was a very, very small sort of thing. And we didn't engage on nearly the same sort of scale as we do now, in terms of the committees, the people that we talk to, how much we're trying to do. We were trying to live up to sort of, I believe, where did I read it? I can't remember where I read it. But there is a statement that, sort of all students should have the same access to this, that, and the other thing. We were trying, I suppose, we started the year with sort of the ambition to try and live up to some of that, more than what had been before. And then, of course, there were several setbacks, and we couldn't, but we had already overextended ourselves. And I think we made the tactical error of attempting to sort of carry on through and not readjust our strategy, if that makes sense. So I'd say that when I'm saying this, there's things that happened. I'm not saying that those things maybe we should have responded differently to them than what we did. I'm not saying that I think we did the best we could at the time with what we thought we were doing, but hindsight is 20/20, and you realize that actually, that was a stupid idea. We should have done that instead.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to do that now, after having seen the consequences, than actually at the time.
So going forward, I think it is clear now going to be largely responsible for getting the minutes done and out. Is that?
I can't speak personally, but Heidi is kind of nodding.
I'm here. Do you want me to come back down there?
It's okay. You can go more.
I'll find it. Claire has been seconded she's more the minute taker. She's our administrative assistant, but yes, she has been seconded to do that. She was seconded up until October because we felt we would have a deputy in place. Sadly, don't have that in place. So her contract will be with the approval of the executive, which has happened.
This was
Okay. Back up a second.
Okay. So her role will be continued on. It has been extended through the summer. So yes, that will be a primary function of Claire, and so there's still some teething issues with that as well, and she's been things have been inherited that we are trying to work through. We did advertise. One second, Rebecca. We did advertise for a minute taker. We did advertise that on the web. On the website, it was advertised for months. Rachel and I were ready to interview people. No one came forward. So we absolutely realize there's a transparency issue that with the minutes, and we are trying. But yes, Claire will. She's really excited about trying to do this
I love minutes.
in a move forward.
I think I recall that one of the problems with the previous administrative assistant was that they were employed by UHI as opposed
No, they were employed by us. Well, what was it again? I can't remember. The technicalities of it. They were sort of employed by us, but they were sort of employed. They got payroll through the university, like static officers.
They were employed by, it was after a motion that was passed at Student Council
The year before.
So actually, in fairness to Dane and the sabbaticals of last year, they inherited this admin support. But UHISA went ahead and advertised and went to recruitment for admin support, but it was very much UHISA. UHI provides services in kind to UHISA, which include payroll and so on, and that was the only connection between the admin support and UHI, was that as the same with the officers, their wages are put through as a service of kind from the university and processed on behalf of UHISA. They're very much an employee of UHISA.
The problem with that is that UHISA has a sort of unusual status as a body to be employing people, and it doesn't have. If you're employed by a company, the company will have this much documentation on its employment policies on it. UHISA had nothing at the time this person was hired. This was a rather large oversight. The person was hired just as I took up the post. I was part of the interview process, but having never employed anyone, I didn't really know how much paperwork goes along with it, and none of that paperwork was then in place until after we sort of went back and said, oh, actually, you need to have all this documentation in. We had attempted to cobble together all this documentation. There were complications that ensued, and at the time we decided the best move was to terminate the position for, I think, brother.
So none of those problems were associated with Claire?
No,
Well,
Right.
I'm
Please,
employed by HTC,
Right.
but I do work for UHISA, although UHI pays for me.
Right.
It's really complicated, but
Secondment.
yeah, I'm basically HTC employ me because I was doing work for them over the summer,
Okay.
and then when this came up, they let me put me on loan to UHISA.
What we tried to do was a quick solution to a problem in that there was a lack of staff within the association. And the stuff that Dane's talking about, the lack of underlying procedures, which I think were going to be developed last year, but I'm not sure they have been. But the idea was that we could get around that because, in effect, Claire is employed by Trinity Logical College and on secondment to UHISA.
So she's basically a football player on loan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, star striker.
Yeah.
So to hopefully move the conversation a bit further, we were still dealing with the employment stuff up until November, December time, which is right after student council. So that's one of the things that immediately would have slowed up us moving into dealing with some of these motions. And so then we moved on to other issues as well. We spent a lot of time looking, or in discussing with Ian and various other people, how to get the structures in place. A lot of, and I now have to go and explain all kinds of other stuff. A lot of students' unions employ their own staff, but they also have almost all of them have what's called a trustee board. So they have something very much like a charity would have. So they'll have people who are independent, people kind of overseeing, and they are sort of the employers of a person. So therefore, instead of myself and the president being the direct employer of a person, in fact, there was a point, I believe, when we worked with them where we realized that Rachel was financially liable in the case of anything unfortunate happening with the employment, rather than the advisor of the company. It was a very bizarre situation, but you can see why. This is why you need to have the procedures.
So this took up
It
all
took up a
of your
lot of time.
Right.
And there's things like that that popped up and took up a lot of time that would have been better spent, and wouldn't have been required to have been spent on that without other things.
Okay.
But we considered it a priority to try and figure out how best to increase the capacity of United by making it so that those structures were in place.
Okay.
Maybe that time could have been better spent elsewhere.
So from January onwards, what was the main thing that was being dealt with?
We continued to discuss the trustee boards and structures. Further on that, but that was sort of a side note. What do you think? I'm going to ask a question on the way back. I have to block these things. As of March, there was a period between March when there was regular work went into providing the budgets. Myself and Rachel do different things. Principal appointment as well was another one. And there's a lot of restructures in the university court, which has taken a lot of Rachel's time. That and the appointment of the principal, which required various interviews and meetings and all sorts of stuff like that. Myself, I did a lot of work developing the budget, and a lot of research involved in that. From March, Student Council, actually, is in here?
No, stick with it.
That's good, that's brilliant. Because Student Council, it might not look like it takes a lot of work to put this on, but it takes an immense amount of work. It takes a phenomenal amount of work, and I am amazed that she managed to do this with only herself and a bit of help. You know, the help is provided by Kevin and Ian and Melissa. And I had to do something similar, but there was more of us then at the time. And when was that? That was April. So what happens is usually there's one urgent thing on to the next. So after the budget, it goes directly on to Student Council. From Student Council on, we go on to Organising Handling, which is an event very similar to this. And so because we do all of our own admin, because we didn't have admin support, you add those onto the pre-existing meetings, and then the external sort of things. That's where you get all this build-up of things.
Okay.
Let's see, January. What was it in January? Here's another one. Not that I'm proud of saying this, but elections. Election tours. Ran around a bit trying to promote elections. And then there was a 2-week period when elections were taking place. Promotion of that and all the sort of relevance surrounding that. That takes up quite a lot of time as well.
So this was the by-election.
This wasn't the by-election, this is the proper election.
The proper election.
It was February, March?
February.
Late February, early March into that area. That was sort of the thing that I remember standing out there. And between all that, we've already discussed various meetings and things of that nature. That's another big thing. Right around election time, we were trying to launch our website at the same time as just prior to the elections. Melissa will remember how fun that was, trying to get the address changed over. Probably spent a week on the phone to various technical people to try and get the website working. Oftentimes it's not the big things that sort of eat up your time, it's often the little things.
Okay. Well, I think that's because there's all a clearer picture of what happened last year.
Yeah.
So it's more a case of what's happened
This year.
between the end of your reign and the
My brain Brain? Oh dear.
Your reign of fear. Fear and intimidation.
The Iron
also
Fist
want-
of Dane. And
I also want to add. I want to add that the number 3 on page 49. That's actually complete as well. I did that myself.
That's complete.
That is complete. Yeah. It probably will be because it passed on when the paper was put together. Because I wasn't around to remind people that I've actually done it.
Okay.
Is that like creating a working group consisting of a deputy president?
But then, obviously, if there's no deputy president this whole year,
Well, the working group was a very short-term working group.
right?
It completed its work within its lifetime and it was finished.
Okay.
That whole point around that was there was a motion about passed regarding how to handle officer expenses, and that provoked discussion about that. It was the reason there was a person from UHF Finance, several other officers, and myself discussed how to handle the expenses of individual types of officers employed by how the volunteers, the reimbursement for the travel and things like that was actually handled, which is not very clear in the wording for how that came to be. There's another one.
I mean, to be fair, looking at some of the ones in the list from November, some of them are probably stuff you'd say would be kind of ongoing, like you know, to promote elections to students as and when they arise.
I think the only ones that are elections
to
are.
be involved in the community.
Yeah,
Doing a complete
You know,
thing.
some of them are quite vague. And,
I did actually try that. I did try to. I can't remember. It was actually whether it was before or just after student council. I was trying to organise a charity event with an Inverness-based or Highland-based charity called Coffee Scotland. You might have heard of it. I had zero uptake from the student body. I was very disappointed at that.
Yeah, and support events that encourage debate to allow students. I think that.
There was a lot of work
referendum
went
debate.
into a lot of work that went nowhere, incidentally, into an independence referendum debate type thing, and that there was a lot of work went into it, but there was nothing came out of it, unfortunately.
We have one that lose.
You have one, you lose. No, I mean
There were individual ones.
there were individual ones, exactly. We were going to organise one of ours as well, to go alongside what other people were doing, but it didn't happen. Yes, we've got 2 people. Maria, you haven't spoken much?
I'm just going to say that I know for us, the problem we had was we tried to do a kind of debate that you were saying as well, but I don't know about the college come as well, but the college refused to let it happen. So they didn't
First-
process.
Hers had exactly the same thing. We put forward that we wanted a referendum, and the college took all options away from us, excluded people who proposed that it happened from the. There was a debate, but it was entirely organised by the college on the college's terms.
Ours wasn't even allowed to happen.
So we had a.
Yes, I think that might be an issue that was
Yeah.
kind of underlying.
Lydia, I can confirm that was not the issue. The United.
No, our issues were very logistical bits. I think there was an issue with venues and things like that as well. I wasn't actually. Alan was doing a lot of that stuff, so I don't remember the specifics off the top of my head. But yes.
At the minute, I'm actually going down the lines of trying to get another debate sort of post
Of course,
referendum pre-general election, and I've actually asked how the college would stand, and they said as long as we're neutral and it's put forward for the college to stay neutral, all parties get invited, that they don't really see a problem with it, but I've got to keep it informed every step of the way,
Yeah.
so that the college can say, right, okay, we want you to change this, or this isn't suitable, so that it will be student-led, but it's just with the guidance of the college being neutral.
No, that sounds perfectly what I would expect. Yes. We're going to move on shortly, because I know we've kind of, I think we've hopefully answered some of the questions. There's one more I want to check off the list here, but we'll take your question then.
It seems to me that a lot of problems are happening of understaffing because people are stepping down a lot. Why, if it's not too blunt a question, why are so many people just walking away from UNISA?
Does how you want to answer that? No, I want to start. It can. No, sit down. This is mine.
No, I didn't hear the whole question. I'm happy
It's,
to.
why is everyone stepping down from behind it?
Oh gosh.
There's
I mean, I
It's your
don't
question.
need individual specific
no.
reasons.
I'll give a couple.
but
I suppose generally speaking, and I think in the case of in case of Kat, she had reasons. She was part-time, she was studying, and she found it difficult to balance the work, the studying, and her other life. And that was, personal circumstances that, that led to that. But in general, and part of the reason she couldn't balance it is because Gehaisa is a very working in it, paid, and as a volunteer. It takes a lot. It takes a lot out of you. It takes. I regularly put in probably more hours than I should. Other people I've watched have done the same. Person who was the previous president, Katrina, 2 years ago, she put in a ridiculous amount of hours into this, and it's not only is it sort of a lot of time, but it's also quite emotionally a lot of emotional investment in this kind of thing, and it does burn you out. It can be very hard to sort of do it, and so full on. I think there's issues about what we possibly expect ourselves to do, and I was talking about too much ambition, and I think that was probably a major issue last year. And I think that we attempted to do too much, probably. We needed to step back. I think.
Is Gehaisa doing anything to try and help alleviate this strain? Because clearly they can't continue running like this.
Well, it's not really running. That's right. But
I think
yes.
Can I make a point of this?
John.
Just wanted to say, what Ben says is absolutely correct. You go into these things with all the optimism in the world and all for the right reasons. You get in there and realise this is an animal that you probably... I've been around a bit longer than most. I've seen certain things. I've worked in certain places, and sort of workload you're looking at, the complexities, the official stuff, the legal stuff, the documentation you have to do, hugely overwhelming. And that's enough to scare anybody away with the first few weeks. That's the sort of thing you're looking at, but I think the underlying thing is some sort of training support, some sort of something that everybody needs to get. There's a handover, it doesn't tell you that 1% of the story. You do get help with it, but it's not enough.
To be honest,
we very thick skin to carry on with it.
I want to add something to that.
So just to say that that's something that's a discussion we are actually having at the moment. I'm trying to see if we can identify maybe with appraisals or training or something, just to try and get it moving. It's very sensitive to that issue right now.
We don't know what the outcome of next week will be, but I think something I certainly and John have been very strong about is looking at what Gehaisa has attempted to try to do, and we can't do it. Clearly, we can't do what we set out to do. I'm kind of remaining out of some of this because I've only been a part of Gehaisa since July, so I can't speak to anything that happened before July. I'm not trying to opt out. I'm not trying to hide. If I wasn't there, I can't speak to it. But something we have talked about is, regardless of what happens next week, we need to look at what is before us and say, you know what, Gehaisa can do this, and we can achieve this with some support. We're doing well in this area. Gehaisa can't do this. This cannot be a priority. We have to strip back. We're supposed to be about students. We're supposed to be representing you all. Clearly we're not. Okay, clearly we're not doing our job. Throw our hands up. We're not doing our job. We need to get better. So we need to strip everything back, get back to the basics, and focus on you as students. I'm a student too. Focus on the students and say, let's concentrate on the things that are fundamental to Gehaisa, and let's get those good. Let's work at getting those good. And the other things can't be a priority right now because we did take on too much. You get excited. I had enthusiasm too. I'm not saying that's gone, but there are absolutely times that I would say I wanted to walk away. There are because it's democracy. There are personality clashes sometimes, and we don't all see eye to eye. We have very different leadership styles, and that just adds layers. And I'm not going to get into all that. But I think certainly a priority, a huge priority, is when we all get back together, is stripping everything back and getting down to the basis of what Gehaisa can do and focus on that. I know that doesn't fix things. We can't fix things, but that's at least so you all know that is certainly a priority to try to get back.
And just to add again to that as well, that this is something that if anyone's in this room is thinking of going forward for the next generation or whatever it is, 2.0, whatever, if it's the federal model or aware that it's going to get involved in this. Don't overcommit very early. It's so easy to do so because you just want to make such a change. Everyone is going to get that market, and but it's a reality. And once that train's moving, it's very hard to stop it. And I think that's a reflection of what's happening.
I think Maria's built up some considerable muscles in her arms.
Sorry, I forgot that in my arm.
You still want to jump in there?
I just want to support what you guys are saying because I know that some colleges don't have like paid officers or part-time officers and that, but I know that even class reps are sometimes being overworked. And I know that over the last like 2 months, the months that we've been having students in, the number of times that me and Lizzie have gone through the desks is unbelievable. I have actually got a photo of this head. But you do go into it with the passion about what you want to do. I'm going to change this. But you don't realise how much work it actually takes. And often, as well, I find that institutions can sometimes think that you're there all the time, and you're free all the time, especially if you're part-time, which is what the problem we have, is that you're there a drop of a hat. So it's really, really difficult to step back, especially when you know that you being at a certain meeting would really benefit. It is extremely hard to step back and go, no, I shouldn't go, I've done my how many hours, I shouldn't go. Especially if you do want to make a difference. It's extremely hard, and there has been times myself as well where I've gone, I can't do this anymore. But it's, I completely understand the workload is above and beyond what you would expect. I think sometimes institutions they have to look at what they're expecting, especially if you have part-time officers, because studies alone, a lot of the students out there don't have a job when they study, it's full-time. So it's a big ask for all these things.
So if I can kind of wrap up there, hopefully
So,
move on.
one more thing, Dave. Just
one more.
If anyone's got any ideas how to fix this, please tell us.
I want to end on a high note. I ticked off 2 items that actually one's not really relevant yet, and one of them was completed. I want to point out one more that was actually completed from this list. It's support the NUS transport research to gain national solutions and ensure the pilot plans are factored in. In addition to having sent people to various forums and workshops that NUS were doing at the time, we took a motion to the national conferences, NUS Scotland National Conference motion about specifically rural transport, which essentially was voted on by all representatives from all of the universities and colleges in Scotland, and which was voted successfully and put that as a priority on the campaign list of the National Union of Students. So there has been work done on that as well. So I just want to highlight one of the good things after all this talk about how useless we generally are. What time is lunch?
1 o'clock.
So if we go, we're going to go to the paper number 2, and I'm sorry for being sort of disorganized, but it's a very kind of tricky thing to tackle using 2 different papers and all that. And Derek goes again. Actually, we don't need that anymore.
No,
We're going to switch to laptop.
Before you shut that thing you just shut out, it said I was from West Highland College.
Oh. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
No. His list of members present in November said that I was from West Highland College. Yes. Not on that list.
No, on this one.
On the other document. Yeah.
On this one. These have not been, because they weren't written up for the April Student Council. These were guys, and this has not been approved.
Right.
So this is fine.
More than
Anyways, okay. If we go.
Do Perth, yes.
If we move on